In 17th century Maharashtra, daily life was heavily dictated by strict agrarian boundaries and deeply entrenched social codes. This diagram illustrates the orthodox caste hierarchy of the era. At the very top sat the religious elite, holding absolute authority over scripture and ritual. At the bottom were the laboring castes, strictly prohibited from studying religious texts or participating in direct worship. Tukaram Bolhoba Ambile was born firmly into the lower tiers of this structure. His family were Shudra tradesmen and farmers, managing a modest grocery business in the village of Dehu. In 1629, a catastrophic famine wiped out his region. Tukaram watched his parents die, lost his first wife to starvation, and saw his business utterly collapse into ruin. Stripped of his wealth, his social standing, and his family, his earthly life was effectively over. That total despair morphed into a fierce, unmediated focus on God, leaving him with a spiritual clarity that the establishment would soon find dangerous. Varkari tradition holds that the deity Vithoba, also known as Lord Panduranga, came to Tukaram in a dream, giving him a strict command to sing. Tukaram obeyed, but he made a radical choice. He began composing devotional poetry, known as abhangs, entirely in Marathi. He discarded the restricted, sacred Sanskrit of the priests to use the everyday language of the farmers and tradesmen. He authored thousands of these verses, pressing the struggles of the masses into palm leaf manuscripts. Using the vernacular was an immediate theological threat. By writing in a language anyone could understand, Tukaram bypassed the Brahmin priesthood's monopoly on scriptural interpretation. Speaking directly to God in the common tongue removed religious authority from the inner sanctums of the temples, placing it squarely in the streets. The Orthodox establishment mobilized quickly. A highly educated scholar named Rameshwar Bhatt led the ideological charge to silence Tukaram. The official accusation was severe. As a lower caste individual, Tukaram had no authority to interpret Vedic principles. His poetry was formally declared a pollution of the religion. The local religious authorities handed down their verdict. Every single manuscript containing Tukaram's poetry was to be confiscated immediately. His life's work was bound tightly in cloth, weighted down with heavy stones, and dropped into the deep waters of the Indrayani River. Drowning the manuscript served a highly specific purpose. It was a deliberate, systemic act of censorship meant to erase a dissenting subaltern voice and firmly re-establish the authority of the caste hierarchy. Tukaram responded by walking to the riverbank. He sat down before the temple doors, refused all food and water, and began a grueling fast unto death. For 13 days, his physical condition deteriorated. Tension paralyzed the village as the public waited to see if the Orthodox elites would actually allow a highly devoted man to starve to death over his poetry. According to deeply held legend, the river yielded. On the 13th day, the stones failed, and the manuscripts floated to the surface, completely dry. The ideological opposition collapsed completely. Rameshwar Bhatt, the scholar who ordered the destruction, publicly sought Tukaram's forgiveness and surrendered to become his disciple. Whether interpreted as a literal intervention by the divine or a powerful metaphor for the survival of truth, the ordeal at the Indrayani River permanently shielded Tukaram's poetry from orthodox attacks. With his authority secured, Tukaram elevated manual labor. Farming, sweeping, and crafting were reclassified from markers of low status into holy acts of devotion. This animation shows his radical philosophy in action. The rigid pyramid of the caste system collapses into a flat, interconnected circle. Tukaram taught that God judges individuals solely by their moral actions, completely invalidating birth-based hierarchy. He practiced this equality actively through communal kirtans. People from all castes sat side by side, sharing space and singing the same songs. The movement physically centralized around the Vitthal temple, transforming the traditional stone complex into a beacon for spiritual democracy. His abhangs operated as active political tools. By democratizing access to God, they chipped away at the psychological justifications used to maintain inequality. The historical record concludes Tukaram's physical life in the year 1650, when he was in his early 40s. But the Varkari tradition offers a different ending, known as Vaikuntha Gaman. Devotees hold that he never experienced a physical death and was instead carried directly to heaven in his mortal body. Today, his enduring influence physically manifests in the Pandharpur Wari. Hundreds of thousands of pilgrims walk together annually, tracing his exact path. The specific verses he wrote 4 centuries ago still echo through these crowds, sung with the exact same rhythm, joy, and defiance. The ultimate miracle of Sant Tukaram is how his rebel poetry survived the river of time, flowing downstream to permanently define the identity and spiritual heart of Maharashtra.